In today's episode, we go over 3 of the most unusual and bizarre deaths caused by animals, from a pet deer gone berserk, flying bears, and even one of the only reported deaths caused by the mysterious bird known as the cassowary. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. Welcome to Final Affliction. It was just another ordinary Wednesday morning in Moihu, a small community in northeast Victoria, Australia. Paul MacDonald, a 46-year-old farmer and loving husband, went outside to feed his pet deer, a cross between a red deer and an elk. He had owned the stag for 6 years, and the couple had always considered it a part of their family. But what seemed like a routine task turned into a horrific tragedy. Paul's wife, Mandy, and their 17-year-old son, Ethan, heard a commotion coming from outside. As they rushed to investigate, they found Paul being viciously attacked by the animal he had raised and cared for. Mandy MacDonald couldn't believe her eyes as she saw her husband Paul being attacked by the family's pet deer. The stag, which had been part of their family for over 6 years, was now acting aggressively, pouncing on Paul with its sharp hooves and antlers. Mandy was filled with a mix of terror and determination as she ran towards the scene, determined to save her husband. As she approached, she saw the deer thrashing its antlers, trying to gore Paul with each swift movement. Paul was trying his best to fend off the animal, but the deer was too strong for him. Mandy watched in horror as her husband's body was tossed and turned by the aggressive stag. Despite the danger, Mandy refused to stand idly by and let her husband suffer alone. She sprinted towards the scene, determined to save her love from the dangerous animal. Mandy had to think quickly as she approached the stag. She didn't have a weapon, and the deer was in a frenzy. She decided to use her voice to try and distract the animal and save Paul. She screamed loudly, trying to startle the stag and draw its attention away from Paul. To her relief, the deer turned its gaze toward her, giving Paul a brief moment of respite. But the moment was short-lived as the stag shifted its focus to Mandy. The animal's eyes were wild with rage as it charged at Mandy. She braced herself for the impact, but the stag was too quick. She felt its sharp hooves hit her legs and its antlers strike her upper body. The pain was intense, but Mandy refused to give up. She tried to keep her footing and fight back, but the deer was relentless. Mandy could feel her strength waning, and she feared she wouldn't be able to escape the animal's wrath. Just when all the hope seemed lost, she heard the sound of footsteps rushing towards her. She looked up and saw her son Ethan, armed with a large slab of wood. Ethan swung the wood with all his might, striking the deer in the head and causing it to stumble. The stag shook its head, trying to regain its balance, but Ethan continued to strike it until it finally retreated and rushed back to the house to call for help with his mother. As the responding officers arrived at the scene, they were met with a frightening sight. In front of them stood the family's pet deer, towering over the fallen body of Paul MacDonald. The deer was acting aggressively, his massive antlers raised in a threat display as he guarded his prey. The officers approached cautiously, weapons drawn, trying to assess the situation and determine the best course of action. They could see that Paul was badly injured, with obvious wounds on his body, and they knew they needed to get to him as quickly as possible. But the deer was not willing to let them get close. He was agitated, snorting and stamping his hooves, and the officers could see the wild look in his eyes. It was a surreal and frightening moment, with the peaceful countryside around them punctuated by the sound of the deer's aggressive grunts. The officers were aware of the danger posed by the deer and the fact that mating season was in full swing, increasing the animal's aggression levels. They knew they needed to act quickly to protect themselves, as well as the paramedics who were already en route to help Paul. The deer continued to act aggressively, even as the officers approached, and it soon became clear that they would not be able to get close to Paul without risking their own safety. In a split-second decision, the officers took action to neutralize the threat, firing their weapons and bringing the deer down. The sudden sound of gunfire echoed through the valley, shocking the peaceful surroundings into silence. The deer fell to the ground, motionless, and the officers were finally able to get close to Paul. But it was too late. Despite their best efforts, the farmer could not be saved, and he was pronounced dead at the scene, the victim of an attack by his own pet deer. The officers remained on the scene, securing the area and assisting the paramedics as they arrived to attend to Mandy McDonald, who had been badly injured in her attempt to save her husband. The small community of Moihu was in shock, grappling with the tragic events that had taken place on their doorstep. And as the investigation into the attack began, the question on everyone's mind was how something like this could have happened, and what could have been done to prevent it. Deer experts had mixed reactions to the attack. Steve Garlick, chairman of the Deer Management Committee at the Australian Deer Association, was quoted as saying that deer are much less likely to attack anyone than they are to run away from them. However, others familiar with the stag species were not as surprised, given that the fall months are deer mating season. During this time, with higher testosterone levels, deer can become more aggressive. The attack has deeply affected the family, especially Paul's 19-year-old daughter, Gemma, who paid a touching tribute to her father. He did everything that a dad was supposed to do and taught us everything we need to know. Her mother remained in a critical condition at Melbourne's Alfred Hospital for over a month before miraculously making a full recovery. The attack by Paul's pet deer serves as a reminder that domesticating wild animals can be a dangerous and potentially deadly decision. Despite their alluring beauty and majestic presence, wild animals are not meant to be kept as pets. They are animals with instincts, behaviors, and physical attributes that are designed to survive in their natural habitats. When those animals are taken from their natural environment and kept in captivity, their natural instincts and behaviors can become unpredictable and dangerous, leading its owner and the community at risk of meeting their final affliction. The cassowary, native to the lush landscapes of Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, northeastern Australia, and the surrounding islands, is a magnificent bird. Standing at an imposing height of 6.5 feet and weighing upwards of 130 pounds, the cassowary is the second heaviest living bird, only surpassed by the ostrich. It's truly the closest living thing to a dinosaur. Despite its primarily herbivorous diet of fruit and seeds, the cassowary is not to be underestimated, as its aggressive side has earned it the reputation of being the world's most dangerous bird. The shy and elusive nature of the cassowary has made it difficult for researchers to study the 3 extant species of the bird, with much still unknown about these fascinating creatures. One of the species' defining features is the blue skin on its face and neck, and the keratinous casque on its head, which scientists are still divided on what its purpose serves. Some theories suggest that the casque serves as a weapon in fights between cassowaries, or as a tool to bash through dense underbrush, but these have yet to be scientifically proven. However, what is known is that the cassowary is not to be trifled with its 3-toed feet and sharp claws, including a 5-inch-long dagger-like talon on one toe. When the cassowary feels threatened, it has been known to use its feet as weapons, and it is this that has resulted in numerous attacks on both humans and dogs. During World War II, American and Australian soldiers stationed in New Guinea were warned to keep their distance from these birds, recognizing the threat they pose to human safety. A 2003 study found records of 221 cassowary attacks, with 150 of these attacks being against humans and the remainder against domestic dogs. In many cases, dogs have been killed as a result of these attacks, including a case in 1995 when a dog died from an intestinal rupture after receiving a kick from a cassowary. In 2012, a tourist in Queensland was kicked off a ledge into a body of water by a cassowary, but escaped unharmed. There are thankfully only a handful of fatalities from the legendary cassowary, the first being that of Philip McLean, and is truly terrifying. Philip, at the young age of 17, and his 14-year-old brother, Granville McLean, were out in Mossman, a sugarcane growing area in far north Queensland, searching for their horses when they stumbled upon a horrifying sight. Their dog had become cornered by a large cassowary, the world's most dangerous bird. The dog was getting beaten up, and Granville rushed in to help, only to be kicked in the leg by the bird. Philip then attempted to protect his brother and the dog by attacking the cassowary with the horse bridle he was carrying. However, Philip's bravery proved to be fatal as he received a strike to the neck from the bird's 5-inch-long talon. Despite being injured, Philip ran towards home, but only managed to make it 200 yards before collapsing from the loss of blood. Tragically, Philip died from his injury, making him the first known human fatality from a cassowary attack. Thankfully, his death wasn't in vain, as his bravery undoubtedly saved his poor dog's life at the cost of his own. The attack on Philip McLean is a cautionary tale of the unpredictable and aggressive nature of cassowaries, even to those who approach them without any intention of harm. The lack of research into the species has resulted in a lack of understanding of the true nature of these creatures and why they exhibit aggressive behavior in certain situations. Whether you are a scientist, a tourist, or a resident in the cassowary's range, the respect and caution that should be afforded to these magnificent creatures should not be underestimated, or you too could find yourself meeting an untimely final affliction. Under the starlit sky of Quebec, near Ottawa, the rural Highway 148 was usually a peaceful road, but on this fateful night, it was about to witness a scene of horror. As two vehicles approached each other, the stillness of the night was disrupted by a tragic and bizarre event. A Pontiac Sunfire driven by two unnamed men, ages 19 and 23, were driving down the road when a young 300-pound black bear suddenly appeared out of nowhere and walked in front of the car. The driver tried to swerve and avoid the bear, but it was too late. The Pontiac Sunfire's aerodynamic design, which was lower to the ground, propelled the bear into the air and into the path of an oncoming Nissan Pathfinder like a speeding bullet. The driver of the Pontiac Sunfire swerved off the road on impact with the bear, crashing into the ditch, but the two young men were unharmed in the crash. Leading up to the crash, as the Nissan Pathfinder made its way down Highway 148, the occupants of the vehicle, a young couple and their friend, were having a leisurely drive, chatting and enjoying the clear night sky. But as they approached the Pontiac Sunfire, heading in the opposite direction, they heard a loud crash before a massive black bear came hurtling towards them, as if from nowhere. They hardly had time to process what was happening before the 300-pound bear came crashing through the windshield of their SUV. The bear's momentum was so strong that it smashed through the front windshield and out the back window, totaling the vehicle and leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. The woman's boyfriend, seated in the front passenger seat of the SUV, was in a state of shock as he gazed at the aftermath of the bear's collision with the vehicle. His world was shattered as he opened his eyes to the sight of his girlfriend, a 25-year-old woman from Ottawa, slumped over and lifeless in the driver's seat. The once vibrant and beautiful woman he loved was now gone, taken from him in an instant. He felt a rush of sadness and anger wash over him as he struggled to comprehend what had just happened. But as he turned his gaze to the back seat, he was hit with another devastating blow. His friend, a 40-year-old man entangled in a mass of twisted metal, also lifeless. The bear's incredible force had claimed 2 lives in a matter of seconds, leaving him as the only survivor. He felt a deep sense of emptiness and loss as he looked at the 2 people he cared about, now gone forever. The reality of the situation hit him like a freight train, leaving him in a state of shock and disbelief. The memories of laughter and good times shared with his girlfriend and friend played through his mind like a movie reel, reminding him of the love and joy they had brought into his life. While it's common for drivers in rural Canada to encounter deer and moose on roads, it's a rare occurrence for bears to wander onto a highway. It was later revealed that it was bear mating season, and a local hunting guide warned drivers to be extra cautious as male bears roam outside their territory in search of female bears in heat. The victims' names were not released, but their families and friends were left with an emptiness that can never be filled. A young woman's life was cut short, and a man lost his life in the most freakish of circumstances. Even the 300-pound flying bear met his unfortunate final affliction.